Washington football. Woo! Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Burgundy Zone. I am your host, Kyle. My co-host will be joining me soon, very, very soon, but I didn't want to wait to be able to talk to this prospect in particular, Mr. Elijah Alston from the University of Miami, the Hurricanes. Thank you so much for blessing me on this Sunday evening, Elijah. How you doing? Doing great, man. I wanted to I saw in your background that you're from Chesapeake, Virginia. Obviously, this being a Commanders podcast, everyone is kind of familiar with the Norfolk region. So, just your background with football. When did you start playing, and what position do you love playing the most? Okay.
If you put me on offense, I feel like I'll play like tight end or maybe a running back. But other than that, I feel like it's something defensively. Like I like to hit people.
My man, that's exactly that's what we like to hear around here, especially. And watching your film, Elijah, it was evident that you're very athletic, very fast, quick twitch. But you obviously were not um, trying to shy away from contact whatsoever. In that Florida game, I noticed like your hand was not in the dirt a heck of a whole lot. Was that just like is that scheme based or is that like your preference?
Honestly, I prefer to stand up,
Okay.
but due to the specific type of position that I play, we consider it a jack. Other people call it bucks. Like it's really just a stand up defensive end. That's more so of a hybrid between a outside linebacker and defensive end. Is more so of why I stand up.
Okay, and then I love the sack that you had on that one because you were reading the quarterback. You saw the middle of that field open up a little bit. You saw the quarterback kind of cheating up a little bit, and you ran right for him. The one I wanted to ask you was the missed interception against Florida. Was that one play that you look back like I wish I could have that back?
I definitely wish I would have caught that interception. That would have did something good for me. But for the most part, like yeah, I really do wish I would have got that one back.
My man, I totally understand. Look, everybody in every day of life, we all have those sort of things. But like in this time, as like because us, like obviously, if you're looking at me, I'm never in the NFL draft, all right. But as an NFL draft prospect, Elijah, what is the process like for you? Like going through like the having to do the pro days, doing these interviews with little people like us. Like, talk to us about how it is for you as a person going through this process.
Honestly, I feel like going through this process, it's a lot of ups and downs because you never know where you stand in the end when it really counts down to your last day of winning. It's the big show and it's like draft day. Like you never know. So like going through this process is a lot of like emotional roller coasters of okay, like I feel good today. Some days like dang, like I don't know what's going on. It's a bunch of ups and downs. But for the most part, you honestly just got to try to stay as positive as possible, especially with training. You train with a bunch of different guys. We all got different backgrounds, different history, um, different placements in this draft, or just in general when it comes down to football. Like we all have different footings in this process. So it's like you just got to enjoy making those new relationships with the guys around you and just enjoying it for what it is.
And during this process, is there anything that you're working on like very specifically in terms of like trying to get better in any sort of area in your game?
I feel like everything, the smallest
Okay.
details possible, like just the smallest things.
Okay, I totally get that because like we have players on the Commanders that were undrafted free agents, like Frankie Louvu, for example, linebacker, who you probably know very well, who loves to play with his hair on fire. He was an undrafted free agent, right? And so you like the one thing about the NFL is as much as they talk about the physical capabilities, it's very very mental, right? And what you have to be able to working hard and being able to divulge and watch film is watching film something that you love to do.
Yeah, I do. I do enjoy breaking down film. It gets to give me an advantage when it comes down to playing my opponent. It gives me a faster first step when it comes down to the game. It helps me read what's going on to just allow me to play faster and make more plays.
Is there any player that in the NFL right now that you like to model your game after?
I feel like I have three in a sense that I like their styles of play. I like Von Miller, Khalil Mack, and Cowboys.
Micah.
Yeah, Micah. There we go.
Yeah, those are great ones to be able to do because obviously Coach Quinn got Micah Parsons as a rookie, of course.
Mhm.
And now, like with you were at Marshall for your first couple years, and you were obviously productive there, and then you transferred to Miami. Like, what was the thought process more so of like trying to get more so on the national scale, or is it more like competitive based?
I feel like it was more so of competition.
Okay,
Um, Yeah, I can't take away from the fact that playing at Marshall, we never not played competition. It was always competition. Either it was in practice or in a game. Like we always had competition. I feel like me going to Miami was like a let's see if I can hang around with the bigger boys or just run around on a much bigger stage because at the end of the day, football is football no matter what conference you're in.
okay, I'm right there with you because everyone is a dang good athlete and they're there for a reason, right? Is there a certain coach that you could say like was very impactful on you in your playing career?
Um, Ralph Street, my D line coach at Marshall.
Really?
Probably, yeah, that was a very impactful coach. I feel like not only just when it came down to football, but I feel like off the field, he was definitely like a uncle to me. He kind of guided me in the right places, kept my head on. He taught me a lot of things outside of football, just about life in general, how to just how to be a man. And then when it came down to football, it was also teaching me the pros and cons of football, how to always, what I'm saying, make sure you're on your feet, make sure your head always up, body posture, all of it. Like he stayed on top of me.
My man. And obviously, the NFL is very, very hard. To be in it, to stay on top, to be in the league is incredibly hard to be able to get to. And adversity is going to rear its ugly head at some point. Like what is your like Coach Quinn of the Commanders likes to say, like your why, like why you play ball, like what's the whole thought process behind it? What drives you to be more successful and to do the game that you love to make this as a job? So what would you say your why would be?
I feel like my why is my family, my intermediate family, the people that helped raise me, the people I grew up around. I feel like my family is probably one of my biggest whys. Outside of my family, I feel like it was just more of a opportunity to get out of where I was from, the things I was surrounded by. I knew like I had the opportunity to do better for myself, but not only for myself, but for my family.
My man, I'm glad to hear that because obviously you worked very hard to be able to get where you are. And like, playing at Miami this year, what would you say was the hardest competition you went against, either as a team overall standpoint or an individual player?
Hardest competition, I would give it to my teammate Jalen Rivers. That is a
Really?
very solid offensive tackle right there. Um, Out of all the people I played against, I feel like Jalen has definitely given me a run for my money during practice.
And iron sharpens iron, so to
Most
speak, right?
definitely.
And Cam Ward obviously could possibly go number one overall in this draft, and he was the quarterback of Miami this year, of course. What's your kind of thought process? Like, what was your takeaway from Cam Ward? Because we've watched him ever since like WSU and everything. But dude, he watching him in Miami, he made some incredible plays. Which one would you say like really stood out to you? Is it the Louisville one? Because the Louisville one was
Like
crazy.
it's y'all to the people who watch Cam Ward on TV and you see what he does in the game, it's like mind-boggling. It's not that mind-boggling to me seeing it in a game because he does it at practice.
Okay.
And so the pressure y'all see going on in the game, we're multiplying that by five when it comes down to pressure in practice, and he's doing the same thing. So it's like practice. I feel like the stuff he does in practice is probably even more crazier than what he does in the game. Because it's like, how do you do this?
My man, when I saw that Louisville throw the back of the end zone after Ashton Gillette almost is tackling him and he's able to get that ball over. And then the other one to Xavier Restrepo that was very short of the touchdown that he threw. Just incredible. But one thing that I really, really like about your game is the way that you use your hands and the violence and the spin moves that you even use. It seems like your pass rush repertoire is very vast and you have a wide variety of that. Would you say that is a strength of your game?
Yes, I do feel like the versatility and my pass rushing is definitely a strength of mine.
My man. And then what about setting the edge in the run game? You did not shy away from it at all.
Nah, not at all. Set an edge. I mean, for my position as a defensive end, that is your number one job.
Right.
Keep contained.
It's funny because a lot of people in the fan base are saying like Washington needs an edge setter, right? They need an edge setter. Well, my point being is, well, that's supposed to be what you're doing, and hopefully we're able to get somebody in here like yourself who can be able to do so. Now, what would you say is the best defense that would fit you? If like I'm not obviously a lot of teams in the NFL they move every offseason. They're changing coaching staffs and everything. But base defenses, what would you say fits you the best?
Honestly, I feel like I'm comfortable in any style of defense,
Okay.
just due to the fact of like I've had somewhat of a regular base four down defense where like when I first got to college, it was my hand was in the dirt, and then I played for Lance Guidry, and Guidry had me standing up. I had a mix of learning how to drop and standing, you know what I'm saying, against standing up. So being able to move around or just going straight forward, I feel like is has never been a problem with me. I don't have a a playbook that I feel like I lean more towards, but honestly, I feel like I'm good in either one.
I absolutely love to hear that. Now, I did want to get your opinion on edge defender Mike Green from Marshall. You did play with him for 1 year, obviously in 2023. That's somebody who could possibly be selected, just in the first round or in the draft. What was it like being teammates with Mike Green? I couldn't imagine you guys on the field at the same time.
Um, my experience with Mike Green was phenomenal. Especially like him coming in, it was fun. I do miss the haircuts though. I miss his haircuts, but for the most part, playing with Mike Green was fun. Off the field, it was fun hanging with Mike. On the field, it was even more electric just to get to see him run around. Me being older than him, it was fun getting to see him run around, make plays, just and influence the other guys around the room to just push a little bit harder.
My man. And now to wrap this up, I only have a couple more questions for you because your time is precious. But what are some of your hobbies that you like to do in your off time?
Um, Honestly, I like to try new foods.
Okay.
I like to cook. I feel like they kind of like flow hand in hand. I would say like photography. I like taking pictures
Really?
of things or just like me in general, like taking pictures of like outfits or like in a sense modeling. In a sense, they kind of flow together. I feel like those probably my two favorite things right there. My two favorite hobbies.
My man. What other sports do you like? Are you a big fan of like the NBA, NHL, baseball, or NFL?
Um, Other than football, I really don't watch TV. Like I don't even turn my TV on.
You're, dude, you're my kind of dude, man.
Don't
That's
really
what I'm
turn my
talking
TV
about.
on.
That's what I'm talking about. Now, like, let's say your next step into where you're going. Like we don't know what team you're going to be absorbed by, but
Mhm.
like, let's say they ask you to play special teams. Is that something that you're willing to? Because we have a guy in our team named Jeremy Reeves, undrafted free agent, and that's what he does. And he goes about it 110% every single time. Even if that was presented to you and that like immediately that's how you're going to make an impact, is that something that you're going to be able to take and say I'm going to do my best every single play?
Most definitely. I enjoy being on the field regardless of its defense, offense, special teams, water boy, whatever, wherever you need me as a player. Like I enjoy just having the opportunity to be on the field. So if it's for me to sacrifice my defensive reps and say you're a special team guy, I'm down for it. Because at the end of the day, when you're on that field, it's not just about me; it's about my team as well. We all here for the same goal.
And my next one, like obviously you were at Marshall for the first couple years and you transferred to Miami. You said you wanted to get better with the competition that was supplied, obviously. What was that transition like for you? Because the day and age of these transfers and everything, obviously you're going to a new home, right? And it's
Mhm.
for 1 year, it's a kind of like a stop for you before you get into the NFL. Was that kind of a hard process for you going somewhere new?
Um, Honestly, I feel like going somewhere new is never hard for me because I'm always open to be somewhere new. I
Okay.
like seeing new things. I like learning new places. You know what I'm saying? Just change the scenery wasn't really a hard thing for me to do, transferring from Marshall to Miami. I feel like it was more so just adapting to coming from the mountains and then coming to a big city. That was probably like the biggest two things. Like, I mean, being from Virginia, like it's not as city as Miami, but we have a decent amount of city like. So again, being in Miami wasn't the transition to Miami was kind of fun, honestly. But I feel like for like a month, maybe a month and a half, I was just trying to get the routine of like how Miami worked, just kind of get my footing out here to understand how Miami works as a whole.
And then my last one, like going to Miami, obviously it's probably going to be different than Marshall, of course, but in what ways did going to Miami help you in sense of upping your game and being able to level with that level of competition?
Honestly, I feel like being at both of those schools honestly helped me out a lot. Like literally helped me out a lot. I learned a lot of football from both schools. Um, I just feel like they both helped me out. It's not like a
Okay.
one helped me out more than the other.
I'm with you. I'm with you. Hall, I'm about to let Elijah go here. His time is very valuable, of course. Do you have any questions for him?
I wish. Been running around with the baby all day. Good luck on draft day, obviously,
Thank
and
you. Thank you.
wish I could have been on here a little bit earlier. Ask you some questions and whatnot.
It's fine.
Hey, have you gotten any insight from pro players that you possible former teammates or anything? Have you reached out to anybody for some insight?
I probably talked to a few players. Current player right now, Andre Sam, a friend of mine who plays for
Okay.
the Eagles. Um, yeah, I talked to Andre here and there sometimes. Like we've talked about like pro days and all of that. Who else I talked to? I've talked to a player that used to play, I would say, a couple years ago. What's the name? Darius Hodge. I just talked to Icky the other day, offensive lineman from Carolinas. Or does he play for Carolinas? I think so. I think he's at Carolinas. Yeah, yeah, yeah. But I talked to them a little bit. Those probably the few people that I've talked to about.
My man. And then last one I have for you, I promise, before I let you go and enjoy your Sunday. If let's say the Commanders were watching this right now, and they were very interested in being able to acquire you on, what would be your ploy? What would be your subject matter to say this is why you should come after me?
Who wouldn't want to come home? I
I
wouldn't
like that
mind coming
answer. I like
home.
that answer.
No, I don't. Should I ask the question? Did Who were you a fan of growing up?
Honestly, I feel like growing up, I didn't really find my real team until I got to like middle school.
Okay.
But majority of my family likes Washington. So it was just like that's what I grew up around. Literally like almost everybody around me likes Washington. But like I didn't find my real team of who I actually liked until middle school. And when I finally picked it, it was Seattle. But my people are still like Washington fans.
No, that's a good one. A coworker of mine is a big Seattle fan. He even goes out there for games, but obviously their color combo is it's hard to beat, man. But I'm glad that you have the good family structure. They're good people then, if they're a fan of Washington. Elijah, I can't thank you enough for joining us and giving us some of your time here. I'm sorry about the little mishaps here and there, but
It's fine. It's fine.
before you get out of here, it's like to plug your Twitter handle, just in case anybody that's watching this would like to come follow you and follow your track.
You can find me at EA2X underscore.
My man. I appreciate you, Elijah, and I'm really
Of
excited to
course.
be able to watch your progress in the NFL. You taking time out to be able to talk with us, it just means that I'm going to be watching you like a hawk now to see where you go in your career, sir. And I honestly will say, after watching it, I starred your name before this even was a thing. Before
Mhm.
we reached out, like I was like this kid, I'd be willing to go and pluck him on because you show the kind of speed and strength. And the only thing I would say to you is like just keep working hard, dude. And doing things like this just shows who you are as a person and just allowing teams to be able to see that. And I think that that's something that's going to take you a long way in the NFL. It's just continue to work hard and just be a great person. I appreciate you for doing this.
Of course. Of course. Thank you for having me.
Of course, man. Have a great Sunday, Elijah. I appreciate it.
Appreciate it, man. Good
You
luck, man.
too.
Appreciate it.
Thank you.
All right, everybody. We just spoke with the man, Mr. Elijah Alston. That was awesome. That was a pleasure of mine. I'm sorry about the audio issues. Of course, we did a Zoom meeting last night, my wife and I, with our pastor. And of course, it was coming out of my laptop and not registering here. So I had to reroute it. And of course, as soon as it's something like this, that's when the issues come awry. But what's up, dude?
Yo, yo, what's good? Wish I
We
could.
have a jam-packed show, by the way. We have another guest lined up here that we are very, very, very familiar with. Our first question that I'm going to answer, this one was submitted on Twitter by our guy Tony Franchise. His question is, Hall, what side of the ball would you like the team to focus on during free agency, defense or offense?
I would say, I mean, I want them to focus on both, but I would say defense just because, I mean, obviously, I feel like edge rusher is probably the biggest need or one of the biggest needs. If it's not 1A, it's 1B on the list right now as far as a need. And like obviously, offensive line is a need too as well. But I think that, I think they would hopefully they go a little bit more defensive heavy in the free agency just to shore things up on the defense or try to shore things up a little bit more on the defensive side of the ball. Obviously, like I said, the offense last year was putting up like what was it like 30 plus points a game or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
And like obviously the offense needs to be upgraded a little bit as well. But I just think that there's a couple more holes on the defensive side that they can shore up in free agency. But as you can see, a lot of free agents are going back to their teams, re-signing with their teams. So the pool of defensive players is draining fast, if you want to say it like that. So yeah, but if I had to, I guess pick one side of the ball to focus on a little bit more, I would say the defense.
For free agency, I would say offense, Tony. And the reason why I say that is, like Jaden is currently on his rookie deal, right? And in his rookie deal, you're probably sitting around 3 to 4 years from now, right? Well, if you're in the win now mode, offense is where you're really putting up a good amount that was carrying the team, right? So I would say that free agency is the now factor. You want to get immediate production out of. So I would say you stockpile free agency offensively, right? But defensively is where you would go through in the draft. And the reason why I say that is when Jaden comes up to that deal, you have built up to the defense for 3 to 4 years now with through the draft that now that is your strength. That is where you invested a lot of the young, right? That they're building up for. And so when it comes down to that, when the money for Jaden is needing to be allocated, not a lot of money is going to be allocated for being able to get those offensive weapons, right? Well, that's why you build up the defense. And so you can able to say in 3 to 4 years, when Jaden is more polished, that now he's going to say, you carry the offense again. We added some guys in immediately after year one, but now because of that money allocated, we're going to have to kind of rely on you. And a certain, I would say, a team that's kind of giving a good example to that would be Kansas City and what they have done and where they added things on defense, right? They haven't gone crazy in free agency or anything like that. But now, like, there's not Bear kind of on that offense. And so now they're kind of moving in and out. So I would say right now is going to be offense. And that's just my preference. Obviously, Adam Peters, a company, could be thinking differently. But that's just the way that I would go about doing it just for the long term basis of it is saying that you're building up the defense for in 3 to 4 years to where that's going to be a self-sustaining organism, so to speak. Now, the next question we have, this one was submitted on by the Colonel. Sorry, I mean, I'm all pissed off about my sound not being good. Now, this next question from the Colonel Hall. Please comment on criticism of Marshawn Lattimore's performance last couple games for us. Some pundits are arguing we gave up too much. A 2025 third, fourth, and sixth round picks for a, quote, this is in the article, quote, oft penalized, underperforming, trash talking has been. And the two articles that he used as support is saintswire.usa today and fansided.
I mean, I would say Saints Wire. They wouldn't be saying that if he was still on their team. They'd be still being like, oh, they'd be making the excuses that not even excuses, but they'd be saying the same thing that a lot of us fans are saying, and the same things that Dan Quinn and Adam Peters have been saying this offseason, which is he came in already injured. He was oft injured last year and the last couple of years. We think, kind of like Zach Ertz, that we can rejuvenate him, get him healthy, get him back on the right track, and get his career going back arcing up, as if you want to call it that. And in which I kind of agree with. As far as the fan sided thing, I mean, whatever. Look, I'm not going to say that part of that is right. He is a trash talker. He is a little bit long in the tooth, if, as you want to call it that, as far as NFL age at that position with all the injuries that he's kind of had throughout his career. But I will say, just like with Bobby Wagner, just like with Austin Eckler, just like with Zach Ertz last year, a lot of people said the same things. And those guys came in, had a whole offseason, the whole regimen going into the offseason to get right, get to know their teammates, learn the system, da 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 da. I just feel like Marshawn Lattimore. I feel like coming into this offseason, he's hopefully going to be healthy enough, or fully healthy, if you want to call it that. He'll have the whole regimen to go through the offseason with, and hopefully know the system a little bit better, know his teammates better, be integrated into the locker room a little bit better. And I just think that obviously we have a coaching staff that gets the most out of their players. And I think that a guy like Marshawn Lattimore, you need some like trash talking, kind of like not like dirty, but like some dogs on your defensive side of the ball. He brings that bully mentality to the defense. And I feel like, yeah, just an offseason with Joe Witt Jr., Dan Quinn, and a whole offseason leading up to the season. Hopefully we'll see I'm not going to say he's going to be his prime Marshawn Lattimore from the Saints, because obviously giving up 3, 4, and a 5, or 3, 5, and a 6, whatever it was, if he was that dude still, they'd be giving up like a second round. They're giving up higher picks for him. But I will say this, that, again, if you just look at Zach Ertz like last year, he was often injured for the last couple of years coming in. People didn't think he had anything left in the tank. Boom, he comes into a Pro Bowl season. And I just feel like, I'm not going to predict he's going to have a Pro Bowl season, but I think he'll be a pretty good player for our defense. And the trade value that we gave for him will offset itself, and it'll be a good trade in the end.
Yeah, I will say, based on that quote, oft penalized, underperforming, trash talking has been. My first question would be: is that Mike Evans putting that out in an article? Because that almost seems like what Mike Evans would say. That is very harsh for Marshawn Lattimore. Look, you can get your punches in now. Obviously, he's coming back from injury, going to a new defense, having to learn new things. It's going to be slow for you. And obviously, you could look at the Saints game and see, look, nothing really happened there, right? You could say that was a notch in the belt, but then you come up with the excuse of, what did the Saints have at that point in time, and were they really going to do something? But I will say that they're just gonna talk, and so look, let them. It's just kind of crazy how harsh that criticism is. I love the trash talking. That's what you need out of a DB sometimes. I mean, how many times have you seen Terry McLaurin jawing with another guy, right? Especially on defense. And so I want that sort of DB that's going to get in the head of a wide receiver, get you out of your rhythm, get you out of your confidence, get you angry, and so you do something you're not supposed to. That's what you kind of want. Look, Marshawn needs to be better. He needs to play better. But I would put this under the same category as Brandon Coleman. Whereas we're all looking at that playoff run saying, Brandon Coleman, is he really the solution at left tackle? He's playing injured. He's playing nicked up. When he was healthy, he was playing some damn good football. And the same thing with Marshawn Lattimore is, let's let them get healthy before we actually come out and say this is concrete who they are. And at the end of the day, playing corner, a lot of it has to do with confidence and knowing where to be. And having a confident DB who's been there and done that before. You can say it was a stupid trade and everything like that. I would still put up the acquisition of Dallas trading for what's his face, Mingo as worse. Okay, just point blank. I'm just going to put that out there. But now we are joined by our next guest, good friend of the show. He thought that he was going to leave draft Twitter and just not have to look at any more drafts apparently, but then he just got the itch. He had to come back to PFN. What's up, Ian? Thank you for joining us, man.
Kyle, it's good to be back, man. I didn't know if I'd be doing one of these calls again. I always enjoy talking ball with you guys, and it's been a whirlwind getting back into the swing of things with less than 2 months to go before the NFL draft. But I couldn't have a better class to do it with. I feel like this class has a lot of storylines to go through, a lot of depth, but also the blue chip guys at the top are very compelling. So it's a fun time. I'm really happy to be back with you guys here.
I'm glad that you're back, sir, because you helped me out a lot as I'm going through these prospects. But my question for you at 29, because it's people have said that from 1 to 10 is where you're really going to get a startable blue chip kind of guy. The rest is going to kind of fall into the wayside, right? But at 29, who do you think is somebody that fits with Washington, what they want to do?
Yeah, so I think defense is what I've always been looking at for 29. I think you could try and get another receiver in there, but after trading for Debo, I think Terry and Debo is a good duo to build around. They might try and get a guy in the day 2 range for that. But defense, edge rusher, depending on what happens with free agency, could be one. Corner as well. I think that late 20s, early 30s could be a really good spot to get a corner. You guys will be more privy to the plans with Mike Sanders still, whether they plan on moving him back to the nickel spot or keeping him at the boundary. But there are some guys within that range. Jedi Barron from Texas, if he's still there, would be a great fit. I love his energy. The character, the tenacity is definitely there with him. But he's got safety, nickel, and boundary experience. So
Incredible,
super
isn't
versatile. Yeah, it's insane because coming into the year, I remember I watched him a little bit before I had that 4 month. I was away from the draft stuff, but when I watched him initially coming into the season, he was mainly a safety prospect. Like
Yep.
he moved to boundary corner and pulled that off, and he's really good. He's a little more comfortable in zone for sure. There are times in press man where the technique isn't quite as clean. I think he can be more proactive with his feet, but I love the tenacity. I love the route vision that he has. Really quick to react, and he's super physical, great playmaker as well. So he's an option. If you stick with edge, I think Nick Scordon, he was the pick I made in my mock draft recently. 6'3", 256. He probably play over 260. Definitely that Dan Quinn type of edge rusher, right? The guy who's low to the ground, really compact, has heavy hands, but he's got enough finesse and fluidity where you can use him on twists and stunts and be versatile with him too. So really nuanced player, student of the game. That was clear from his Purdue days. He was productive at a very early age, and he's still trending up. So I like him a lot as that value guy. But even then, I wouldn't stop there. There are a few more names to know in that corner class. Savon Revel from ECU, he would be a phenomenal pick. He's a one of one physical talent for sure, and he's a natural playmaker for the position. Azariah Thomas from Florida State, probably a round 2 target, but I think he's slept on. I think he could be a top 40, top 35 guy in the class. I still got to build out my final board, but definitely a lot of names for the Commanders within that range.
And then the safety class, who would you say is the top 3 safeties? I would put Malachi Starks up there. What would you say?
I would say Malachi Starks is my top safety. Nick Emmanwori is an incredible talent, and I gotta finalize my grades with them. But I was watching both of them a lot ahead of my mock draft because I wanted to see which one would I take off the board first. And as much as I watched Emmanwori after that NFL Combine performance, man, which by the way, freakish athlete. Like this dude is generational. There's no other way to put it when it comes to the physical talent. 6'3", 230, ran a 4.39. I want to say 43-inch vertical, over 11 broad. So he's a freak. That's very clear. But I think when you think about a safety, right, what are the things that you need them to be able to do? Manage space and route relationships is a big one that goes overlooked sometimes. Talk about playmakers, enforcing downhill, but you got to be able to play single high and 2 high, and keep your spacing prime, and you got to be able to pedal. You got to be able to weave. You got to be really fluid on your transitions. You can't have any delays, any hitches. And Malachi Starks, to me, right, he ran a 4.5. He didn't blow anyone away with his numbers, but you look at how he moves from a coverage mobility standpoint. I think he is top notch. I think he is one of the best we've seen in like 5 years. So being able to manage route relationships, just be that glue guy on the back end, but then also having the range to make plays, the physicality to play and support. And there are times where he's playing slot corner too. Like he can get up there and press man, and he can match you on crossers. So to me, Malachi Starks is the better functional player. I think Nick Emmanwori has a lot of potential, right? But if you're the Commanders, if you're looking for a guy who could be that do-it-all type safety, Nick Emmanwori might have more of a confined role as a box safety, a big nickel, something like that. I think Malachi Starks is your do-it-all, your chess piece on the back end. And for me, that's what I prefer.
It's crazy because whenever they talk about like safeties in the NFL, it's typically like a guy who doesn't have the hips, the flexibility to play outside corner. But Malachi Starks is the exception to that comment because his movement, his hips, it's incredible how quick he really is and fluid in the way that he moves. Sorry, Hall.
Yeah, Washington right now is a little bit light on picks. They have a first, a second, and then I think it kind of drops off, and then they might have like a 6 or a 7, something like that. But I fully expect AP to kind of move around, kind of compile some picks. And there's been a lot of talk about adding a potential home run hitting type of running back to this offense. Probably is going to happen on day 2 by second or third round. who are some guys you have in that range that potentially might be added to this offense and will be a good fit for Cliff Kingsbury's offense?
Yeah, so for the Commanders, when I'm thinking about adding a running back for that offense, obviously you've got Brian Robinson Jr. as your workhorse, as your guy who can take volume. So what do I want to complement that? Home run hitting, like you said. I think having a speed guy who can get vertical really quickly, who can make the most of runways on the outside on wide zone runs is really good too. Get that variety in there. But I also think some receiving upside as well, the versatility to be a threat in the passing game. On day two, a guy that really stands out to me, a guy I've liked for a long time, Trevion Henderson from Ohio State. He shared the backfield with Quinshon Judkins at Ohio State this past year. So the production wasn't quite as high volume as it was in years past. And the medical check is going to be big with him. But if you can get past the medical check, he has the explosiveness, he has the cutting flexibility. He's really low to the ground, really compact, and a really high level receiving threat. So the versatility, the dynamic athleticism, those things really stand out to me. I know Bayshul Tootin is probably a name on a lot of people's boards in Washington, being from Virginia Tech, the local guy. I think he has a little bit of work to keep refining his game from a vision standpoint, from a timing and spatial awareness standpoint as a runner, but 4.32 speed. I mean, the dude is really compact. Again, he's got that strong built frame that you want for a guy that small, right? He's pretty thickly built for that kind of type. So he's got the speed to do it. I think if he can keep refining his game on the running side, on the vision side, he can definitely be that type of player. And then on day three, if I could pinpoint a guy, there are a few in that range. Marcus Yarns from Delaware is a really good, big time sleeper. There's a few more as well. Jarquez Hunter from Auburn is another one that I'll throw out there. And I gave him to Washington in my mock as well. But he's around 5'8", 5'9", over 200. And what I really like about Jarquez Hunter is that he can get outside. He's got the speed to do it for sure. But he's also not afraid to go between the tackles, to really splice through with his speed and lower the hammer and just kind of lower his shoulder and finish forward on runs. Even though he's not the biggest guy, he'll probably play around 205, 210, but he's got that kind of toughness that you want in a smaller guy. And then one more, actually, another name that popped up to me, LeQuint Allen from Syracuse is another day three target to watch. I think he caught almost 60 passes, maybe over 60 passes this past season. So if you want a receiving type of back to complement Brian Robinson Jr., he's got that versatility as well.
My man, have you watched any wide receivers?
I've watched a few. Yeah, ask me and I'll tell you. I'm still diving in, getting back in the swing of things, but I've watched more than a few for sure.
Did you watch Iowa State yet?
Oh yes, yep.
All right. So what would you think about Jalen Noel and Jaden Higgins?
Yeah. So Jalen, I've watched a little more of Jalen Noel than I have Jaden Higgins, just because Jalen Noel was a guy that I pinpointed after the 2022 season. I was like, This guy's got the goods for sure, and I wanted to keep tabs on him. Jaden Higgins was one. I think he came from the junior JUCO route, and then he went to Iowa State, and then he ended up being really productive in his final year. So I got to watch more of Higgins. I'm really intrigued by the athletic profile that he has, being 6'4", carrying that much weight, but then running that fast. But Jalen Noel, man, to me, one of my favorite three-level threats in this entire wide receiver class. I'm really excited to see how he grades out my final board, because he could end up being a top 5, top 6, top 7 receiver for me. I'm really big on the talent. He's got that really low to the ground frame. I think he plays stronger than what he weighed in at the NFL Combine. I think he'll be over 200, but explosive, twitched up. I mean, super hyper energetic, short area motion, and then he can get vertical in the blink of an eye. He can really make quick transitions, like 90-degree transitions, without breaking a sweat. He's got really good gathering skills over the middle of the field, rack ability, making sure that those transitions from catching to running are very short. And then he can extend beyond his frame. I really like how strong he plays for that size. So if I could say things to improve on, I mean, not really improve on, but the catch radius is not very strong, 29-inch arms. So there are going to be some battles that he can't win, right? I don't think you want to employ him on the boundary too much, because if he gets caught with press man, that could be an issue for him. But as your hybrid movement Z slot type guy who can scheme touches and then also get vertical, I think he's a great weapon to have. And it's a 3-level threat. He could be a target funnel. And especially looking at how Terry and Debo can dictate coverages, man, he could feast off that. So Jalen Noel, one of my favorite 3-level threats in the class.
Had 23 reps on the bench press.
Yeah, the dude is strong. Yeah,
which is incredible.
It's crazy. It really is.
Yeah, definitely would be a good add to the wide receiver room. Definitely a good blocker as well. So, like you said, strong dude. So would definitely add to the wide receiver room. Washington seems like they're trying to get a little bit younger and cheaper in the defensive tackle room. This seems like a really good defensive tackle draft from all the people talking about the draft. Who are some guys that Washington fans like, or just people in general, don't really know the names, but you think can be some can get potential day one starters or good rotational pieces to add to the room with Deron Payne and Johnny Newton?
Yeah, it's going to be a a fun little exercise for them, because obviously the John Allen news sucks, right? He was a guy who was born and bred DMV. You know, he'd been there his whole career, and he was playing well before the injury. It's just, you know, being that old and having such a heavy cap implication to consider. Like, you know, sometimes those tough moves have to be made. But, you know, looking ahead, I think Deron Payne is that type of guy who can play some interior alignments, some wider alignments. And then you got Johnny Newton, who was that hybrid guy who could play 3-tech, play 5-tech, even expand beyond that, you know, stunts and that versatile chess piece on the line. So I think what you want to complete the puzzle for Washington, there are a few things that you could get. You could get another disruptive 3-tech to kind of orbit around Deron Payne with Johnny Newton, or you could get a hybrid 1-tech, 0-tech, 3-tech, someone who can hold down the point in those odd fronts. But then also rush outside a little bit if you need him to. A few guys that stand out to me within that lens. One guy that's been really surging, and I'm excited to get into his tape a little bit more. I watched some of him before the mock. CJ West from Indiana. He had 8 tackles for loss, 2 sacks this past year. I think he's around 6'1", almost 320, probably 315. But he's got, I think, over 32-inch arms. Really, really fun tape, man, because he moves easily. Like, this is a guy who makes it look easy, not clunky like you would expect for his size. Really good lateral agility, very good at stacking and shedding. He can 2-gap at the point, but then he can 1-gap. He can penetrate upfield. He's got a swim move in his arsenal too. So I really like that allotment of tools that he has. He's definitely that kind of 1-tech that can add a little element extra for sure. And playing with those guys right off the bat, Deron Payne and Johnny Newton, could really take the pressure off and help him kind of expand earlier, ascend and catalyze to reach his potential. A few other guys, more of the ilk of the 3-tech, kind of late day 2 range. Shamar Turner is one that I would keep an eye on. I think he definitely fits the Dan Quinn mold when it comes to being a natural disruptor at defensive tackle. 6'3", 290. His frame is a little narrow, not the longest wingspan. So there are times where longer offensive linemen can get outside him and club him out of plays. But again, really agile, really explosive, and really physical too. He's going to get right up in your grill. He's going to get full force on extensions, and he's going to generate that torque, and he's got the fluid hips to really unlock that kind of power too. So I like Shamar Turner a lot. And then I would say, if I could do one on day 3, it's kind of rising up boards, Jared Harrison Hunt from SMU as well. I sense that's one of Kyle's guys there. So I will co-sign. I was watching some of his tape too, man. And I'm always a sucker for the guys who are like 6'3", 290, 300. Really good proportional length too. I think he's got 33-inch arms. But then he ran, I think, a 4.8 something at the NFL Combine. So he got on my radar at the Combine. And then I went and watched the tape. I think there is a little bit of room for refinement in some respects. But again, you look at, you know, the way that he can line up at 5-tech and slab offensive tackles, the way that he can get inside and stack quick moves in rapid succession. He can work across face on stunts and, you know, kind of transition to blockers. I think that kind of malleability combined with the tenacity and the aggression that he shows, like, this is a guy who's not playing passive. Like, he's going to give every inch of his 33 inches arms into your grill, into your frame. And, you know, he's just really powerful too, to go along with that. So I like the mentality. I like the talent and the physicality. And he's a late round potential gem. I know the projections are all over the place for him, but if you can get him on day 3, I think it's a steal.
Dude, out of like the 400 possible defensive linemen, you know, Ian had to get my one guy that I did a film breakdown on yesterday that I absolutely love. I think that he's a really, really good player and would love to have him here. But let's stay in the trenches. Let's say Washington wants to go bring some guys in on the offensive line. Where's a good spot, some good players that they're looking like? Holland Pierce, I think, had a wingspan or arm length of like 86 or something. What was his arm length?
It was something crazy, man. I don't remember the exact number, but I think it was the longest in documented NFL Combine history. I got to check. The dude's he's a tank for sure.
So like, where would you say is a really good spot for Washington to be able to go get somebody? And what would you say? And I guess the better question would be, where would you say the bulk of the talent is on the offensive line? Is it interior or exterior?
I would say there's been a lot made of like tackles moving to guard, right? We see that all the time, every single cycle. I think this year in particular, if you're looking for a tackle to move to guard, like this year has a lot of really compelling candidates that could make the transition inside. I think the guard talent is pretty good too. Center is a little sparse, but Washington's covered there with Tyler Biadasz, so no need to worry. Looking at Washington's offensive line situation, it's kind of intriguing because like Brandon Coleman, there's been some, you know, give and take on what his long-term future is. If it were me, looking at how talented he is, I would try and give him another year to develop as the full-time left tackle. I wouldn't make a hasty decision right away because I think, you could pull out the rug from a really talented player who does have a high ceiling. So I would give him the reins for another year at left tackle. Andrew Wiley is only under contract for one more year at right tackle. And I think you could stand to improve and upgrade there. So I would be looking at either tackles who can shift inside to guard if you want a long-term plan past Nick Allegretti, and also Sam Cosmi coming back from the injury too, right? So you need security there. But I would either look for a tackle who can transition to guard or right tackle, right? So on day 2, a few guys that stand out to me, Marcus Mbo from Purdue is one of them. He's around 6'5", over 300, but only 32-inch arms. He played tackle at Purdue. He's probably going to move inside, but his hands are some of the most violent, the most combative, active hands that you will see in this class. And then he's also an incredible athlete. He's explosive, really nimble and free-flowing on his feet, good hip flexibility on recovery. And, again, student of the game, I mentioned it for Scorton. You can tell, if these guys are active or passive and reactive with their hands. And Mbo is active. He's always going to take control early in reps, and he's going to impose his physicality as a result. So I really like Mbo as a guy who has that inbuilt tackle guard flexibility. So he could play right tackle if you need him to, but he can also play guard. He's got that flexibility. Jonah Savaiinaya from Arizona is another one. You might have to get him with your round 2 pick. I don't know if he'll last that far. But he's another one. He kind of reminds me of Matthew Bergeron of the Atlanta Falcons, who came out as a tackle from Syracuse and ended up shifting inside to guard. Even though arm length wasn't it wasn't a deal breaker for him, he's got that high energy athleticism. He's got the really, really compelling road grading physicality to translate inside. And then at the end of the day too, like he's got that really stable center of gravity where he's never too far over his skates. He's always square to his opponent. Those kinds of things, they win me over as a, from an offensive lineman perspective. 2 more names that I'll throw out there. Well, I'll address Holland Pierce as well, because the dude is a massive, massive specimen. And I think with some time to refine his game behind Andrew Wiley, that could be a really compelling scenario for him.
Okay.
Because I do think he needs to refine his mobility. Being that big, the clunkiness does come into play a little bit, but he's big. If he gets his hands on you, that vice grip strength can really come into play. And then Cameron Williams from Texas is one more. That dude moves really well for his size, natural right tackle. I do think he has some room to kind of improve his synergy between his lower body and his upper body, but his feet move really quick for his size. This is not a guy who's going to be plodding too much. And then again, his punches are very powerful. He can uncork all of that force, and he can overextend and outreach guys as well. So 2 right tackles that you could develop behind the scenes, those guys fit the bill.
One guy I watched, Ariante Ursary, watching his matchup against Abdul Carter, who's obviously a top 3 pick in this upcoming draft. It was a fun kind of match to watch those 2 guys go at it a little bit. Do you think Ariante Ursary would have any issues with possibly going to the right side or playing in the interior?
The interior, no, and the right side probably not as well. I think shifting from left to right tackle is always a little bit different of a conversation, because everything that you do, you're mirroring it, right? You kick with your left foot, now you're kicking with your right. You flash your left hand first, now you're flashing your right, depending on what moves you're seeing from the rusher, right? So mirroring everything can be difficult, and the evaluation for that can get really in the weeds. Like, how good is he on this side versus this side? Is there some ambidexterity there with the hand usage? But I think moving to guard would be really, really easy for him, because I think the things that he still needs to improve, right? I do think his hand usage can get a little bit better. I think there are some times where he gets caught sleeping there, or maybe being over reliant on extensions and punches instead of being methodical with what you're facing. But then on the inside too, like one of the things that caught my eye immediately watching his tape is that on attack explosiveness. I mean, when you're attacking, you need to close a gap. That's the first thing. You got to close a gap, get to your landmark. He is one of the best guys at doing that. Just straight up, just wasting no time, getting on the attack, getting explosive and closing those gaps and just imposing his will and kind of exerting that power at the point. Very good player when it comes to that. And then again, he's got the length, the frame density, the mass to kind of win that battle and win that contact battle. So I like his skills a lot and how they translate at guard. You could move him to right tackle. I think that's going to take a little more time because of the mirroring aspect, but I think either one, he's a candidate to, move around when you get him.
My man, last question I have for you, Ian, before I let you get out of here, get back to film review, because I'm sure that you're biting at the bid for it.
Yes, sir.
Your favorite prospect at the moment?
My favorite prospect at the moment. That's a difficult one, man.
Who made you? All right, I'll make it better for you. Which one made you say, like, wow?
Which one made me say, wow? That's a tricky one. This past week, I would say Trey Amos out of Ole Miss. He was a guy coming in, I knew he had a great year. I did not expect his tape to be as clean as it was. I think, looking at the man coverage, the zone coverage, like I came in thinking like a top 50 guy. Like you see the tea leaves from other people, right? So it's like, what am I going to think? I need to get a clean slate before I watch the tape, like, because this is my observation. But I had a certain expectation, and coming away from it, I thought this guy can play man, he can play zone, he can make plays on the ball, he can enforce downhill. One of the more complete players that I've watched on tape, and being 6'1", as fluid and kind of, easy flowing as he is, and as a short area mover, that was really appealing to me. And then another one as well, kind of a cliche one because he's probably trending toward being a top 5 pick, but Armand Membu from Missouri, the offensive tackle. He tested 6'4", 334, ran a sub-5 40-yard dash at that size. Is just absolutely insane. But then I watched the tape. Like, you kind of expect a traits-rich guy who's got some room to improve. He is one of the most refined offensive tackles that I've seen in 3 years. I mean, his kick footwork is very strong. He's always balanced. He's always staying square. He can adjust his kick angle based on how rushers are adapting. If they start wide and go inside, like, he can adjust that. If they start inside and go wide up the arc, he can adjust that too. He's got the lateral explosion to match them and counter. And then he can set the anchor. He's got great synergy with his upper and lower body. If it were me as a GM, I wouldn't let him get out of the top 5. I would try and snap him up if I have a chance to, because I think whether you play him at tackle or guard, this dude can be a blue chip potential all-pro offensive lineman for you, and we know how important that is in the NFL. So Armand Membu is one. Trey Amos is another. There are a few more names. Ask me in 2 more weeks, and I'll have some more for you. But those are the starters.
It's incredible. You've only been doing this for a couple weeks now. Like, you just got back to it, and look at you, already like the encyclopedia of NFL draft. Just imagine if you had those 4 months to be able to do it. Ian, before you get out of here, it's like to plug your social media handle, just in case anybody watch and want to come get the best draft prospect overview possible.
Yeah, for sure. So we are back at it. We're going strong. You can follow me at IC_draft on X, formerly Twitter. Any draft questions that you have, feel free to hit me up and I'll reach back. We're still getting back into the swing of things, but really happy to be back. It's been humbling to see the kind of warm welcome that's been from everyone in the draft community. So only thing left to do is keep plugging away, keep grinding.
My man, if you get your hands on any Marshall All-22, please send that my way. I really would appreciate that, brother. All right, Ian, have a good night.
Appreciate it, man.
All right, everybody, we just spoke with the man, Mr. Ian Cummings. I'm glad that he's back. But
definitely.
We only have a couple more minutes here. And look, he's the best person to go to when you're talking about, well, him and Ryan Fowler are both up there with how good they are in terms of what they do with the draft.
Sir.
Now let's get some fan questions unloaded because we do have some. We don't have a lot of time. So, Hall, this question from Andy Lockhart. Now that Garrett is off the market with his new extension, will Hendrickson's compensation shoot up now?
So I don't really think it's going to shoot up because I've always looked at it as he's not better than Max Crosby, and he's like older than Max Crosby, obviously. And he's not at the level of a Myles Garrett, who's going to be at the top of that list. And then you look at guys like Micah Parsons coming up, TJ Watt's coming up, Nick Bosa's coming up. All those guys, except for maybe TJ Watt, all those guys are younger, and you could say potentially could be better than or are better than Trey Hendrickson. So for me personally, I don't think anything changed as far as Myles Garrett getting that deal or Max Crosby getting that deal. Because, again, once Max Crosby signed at 35, I was already looking at Trey Hendrickson as he was going to get between 31 to maybe between 30 to 32, 33-ish million anyway, because he is a top 3, top 5-ish type of edge defender in the NFL. But the only thing is, like I said, his age, he's 30. So, how many more years are you going to get that elite type of a level of production out of him? So, yeah, for me personally, that didn't change anything because I always looked at him as getting between 30 to 33 million anyway. So, yeah, that's my answer for that.
My man, now the next question from Deluxe. If you could pick 2 more Washington free agents to sign before free agency tampering would start, who would they be? I would say Jeremy Chin for one that I would do. The other one would probably be Cornelius Lucas in the sense of you need to be – because right now Trent Scott and Cornelius are expected to be free agents just to be able to add some more just because you need the fundamental, that backup depth on the offensive line. Already dealing with the injury of Sam Cosmi, that's one area that you want to be able to say we need to stockpile a little bit of assets into. So I will say Jeremy Chin and then Cornelius Lucas would probably be very good there. Now the next question from Deluxe. Hall, Chin and Bates may be the most at risk of getting bigger deals than Washington is prepared to make. What would be the plan B for each? Forrest is a free agent as well. Who else could attempt to fill these roles from inside or outside the org?
Yeah, obviously, if Chin gets outpriced from us, and I know he wants to come back and would like to come back because he talked about earlier in the year how he wished that he had spent his whole career with a coach like Dan Quinn because he feel like he would be like even better than what he produced last year, but he would be more consistent as well from his days in Carolina. But yeah, he might get outpriced by us, but I know a lot of people have been linking what's his name, Tufunga from San Francisco, just because obviously the AP ties.
Right.
A couple coaches on the staff know him, and he's a young and up and coming safety. Definitely a playmaker. Just has to stay healthy. And when he's on the field, he's definitely a playmaking safety. And who was the other guy? Bates. Oh yeah, Bates. Yeah, I think that hopefully they can bring back Bates as well. I know from like guys like Schefter, Jeremy Fowler, or whatnot, they're going to say they said that he's going to have a big market just because blocking tight ends are a valuable thing in the NFL right now. So yeah, I would hope that, especially with the amount of tight end sets that Cliff likes to run, I would think that they would prioritize Bates. But a guy like Gerald Everett is out there. I think is a free agent. What's the dude from the Saints? I always forget his name.
From the Saints?
Yeah, the tight end from the Saints.
Johnson? Jawan Johnson?
Jawan Johnson, yes. Jawan Johnson's out there as well as a free agent. So those are possible replacements for Bates.
My man. Now the next question from Tim Towner. If you only have the resources to address one area, what is your priority? Run offense or run defense? And you can't fix both. For long term, I would say run offense in terms of being able to take the weight off of Jaden in order to be able to grind these games out, control the time of possession, right? And that way, because if you're able to score points, run the football fundamentally, you know what Jaden is able to do, you're going to be putting up points. And when you're putting up points, running the football is not going to be as insane, right? And being able to stop the run because offense is going to be throwing on you to try to get back into the game. For short term, I know that everyone is on the run defense, and I get it, and I wholeheartedly get it. We need that edge setting run defender, and that's something that you probably should be able to do. But like guys like Jalen Holmes, who is a possible free agent himself, big dude who came up with some sacks, should be able to set the edge for you. Dante Fowler and others should be able to do that as well. But we didn't see it last season, and it's not, in my honest opinion, it's not just the edge that has to do a good job of setting the edge, in my personal opinion. So if I'm going to do anything, I'm going to say running the football fundamentally well. If you look at the teams this year that made it into the playoffs and that made it far, one thing they were able to do really well was run the football. Talking about Philly, talking about Detroit, Kansas City, I guess you could say, because they didn't even have Isaiah Pacheco for a lot of the time. They even brought in Kareem Hunt to do it. But good fundamental, good running football teams. The Ravens, another example. The Bills with James Cook doing that. Running the football is what you have to be able to do in the playoffs. And of course, you got to be able to stop the run as well. But personally, just saying, I would be being able to run the football well, in my personal opinion. Now, the next question. What, you want to add something?
No, I was going to say, well, most of the time I would agree. I would say stopping the run would be my answer, only because teams are going to, especially defensive coordinators, are going to be focused in on, okay, first of all, how do we stop Cliff's offense and how do we stop and slow down Jaden? One of those answers is going to be, okay, we're going to have to possess the ball more, which is going to equal to the offense trying to run the ball more, stay on the field longer to kind of keep him off the field, kind of play keep away type of thing from our offense and from Jaden. So if we're able to stop the run, that's going to put the opposing offenses in more predicaments, have to pass on us, and potentially get Jaden back on the field if they can make stops. And I just feel like, I mean, like I said, running the ball is definitely important, and I would probably agree. Just the other side of the spectrum, if you want to make the argument for the stopping the run, I would just say, like I said, stopping the run, because teams are going to be looking at Jaden. How do we get him? How do we be able to stop him? How do we stop this Washington offense? One way to stop the offense is not have him on the field. So,
now, I'm right there with you. But that being said, you could say all that, and then the first play you know, you get a rushing touchdown like Saquon Barkley did against us in,
Yeah.
in the playoffs, and then it's just like, all right, well, no reason for that because they just took 30 seconds off to score 7.
Yeah.
You know, at the end of the day. And then obviously Myles Garrett just got his deal signed, which is a notch in the belt for old dad over here.
Hey, look, I thought that man was committed to winning. He looked like he's a good poker face because when you looked at his eyes, he was like he's doing his little media run at the Super Bowl, talking about, well, this team needs an edge rusher and da 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 da, and it's not about the money. And the plan was never to go from Cleveland to Canton. It was about playing for Super Bowls. Cleveland ain't playing for a Super Bowl anytime in the near future, especially while you're there. But hey, $40 million will make you change your mind real quick. I don't blame him.
Absolutely, and that was my point. Washington, of course, brought back Zach Ertz. They retained Bobby Wagner as well. And Tress Way is another guy that you're going to have to bring back. You know, get my guy back here, obviously.
Surprised they haven't done that already, honestly. That seemed like kind of one of the easier things to get done. But
see, like, you would think that would be something that's going to be done in the next couple days because you want him to have that moment, right? Like, you don't want to do it during the tampering period or during the start of free agency because a lot of people are going to be signing and that news is going to be kind of taken away. So with like Tress, you would think that maybe like that's something they would get done soon. That way he gets a lot of the attention, right? That for Tress, because he deserves that, of course.
Yeah.
And then can't discount Terry McLaurin signing an extension, making sure that he's a commander for life, which I would absolutely love.
Hey, and that helps our cap situation as well, even though we already have money to spend, obviously, but that gives us a little bit more flexibility cap-wise if you extend him. So,
absolutely. All right, everybody, that's going to wrap us up for this episode. I should have restarted it. I didn't have much time because my wife and kids are about to be back here soon. I would have restarted it because the stupid headphones weren't selected on the Zoom app. It's not even on here. It's in the Zoom app that it didn't originally pick up what Elijah was saying. So my apologies, Elijah. It's so stupid, and I don't know how else to describe it. I'm very pissed off right now, but hope you guys enjoyed it. If you made it this far, you're a freaking champion. I'm gonna go be upset for the rest of the day because of my mistake and not running tests and everything like that. That's why I asked everyone to be early. But of course, you know, it is what it is. We get better from it, right? All right, everybody. I'm Kyle.
I'm Hall.
And we'll see you guys again next week. Maybe we'll come out with a random one. We don't know. We'll see you then.
Hey, you might have to do a little free agency wrap up. Not wrap up, but a little free agency podcast.
Maybe. All right, everybody. Washington football. Woo!
Hello.
What's up, everyone? This is Kyle from the Burgundy Zone. We are releasing our own merch to support the show. If you want to rock the Burgundy Zone logo or you want to see Reed's face on your shirt, we got it. We're starting with t-shirts, hoodies, and zip-up. So if you're a fan of the show, make sure you snag one before they are gone. Check out the link in our bio on Instagram, or you can find the link in the description of the video. Thanks again for all your support. Until next time.